Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into a high-stakes medical reality that's literally hiding in plain sight. When you watch a sports game, you might see people rushing onto the field with water bottles or towels, but the truth goes far, far beyond that. We're looking at the frontline medical workers of the sports world, athletic trainers. We're going to explore the incredible science, the intense pressure, and the rigorous protocols that keep athletes healthy and literally save lives right there on the field. Okay, let's kick things off with a story that perfectly captures the intense, almost unbelievable drive athletes have to compete. Back during the 1985 NFL season, Hall of Fame defensive back Ronnie Lott severely injured his pinky finger. The standard medical advice? Reconstructive surgery. The catch, though, was that it would have ended his season and kept him entirely out of the playoffs. So what did he do? He actually chose to have half of his pinky amputated just so he could be medically cleared to play the very next game. No way, right? He later publicly stated that he regretted it, but this extreme choice really highlights the incredible, sometimes dangerous drive of these athletes. Now, I want you to put yourself in the shoes of the person standing on that sideline. How would you handle that immense pressure? Just imagine a coach screaming at you, a parent insisting their kid absolutely needs this game to impress a college scout, or a player like Ronnie Lott begging you to let them back on the field. You've just assessed them, and you've determined it is medically dangerous for them to return. This is the heavy psychological and professional weight that athletic trainers carry every single game. They are constantly battling between this intense culture of competition and the harsh reality of physical health. And, well, that brings us right to the core of their profession. The crucial point you have to remember is this. The ultimate goal of an athletic trainer is to protect the long-term health of the athlete. Period. Even if it means a lost game, a missed championship, or a completely furious coaching staff. They are the objective, scientific voice in an environment fueled by pure adrenaline and a win-at-all-costs mentality. They really act as the ultimate protectors of the actual people inside those uniforms. This brings us to what is absolutely the most critical on-field assessment an athletic trainer has to make: head trauma. CTE, or chronic traumatic encephalopathy, is a neurodegenerative disease specifically linked to repeated physical head trauma. It was actually first called punch-drunk syndrome in boxers nearly a century ago. But today, we know it's a major, delayed-onset threat to athletes in contact sports, like football, rugby, and hockey. Brain injuries are the most terrifying injuries in sports, simply because the damage is largely invisible on the surface. Let's look at how devastating this disease actually is in practice. CTE usually hits years after an athlete actually retires from play. It starts out kind of slowly with short-term memory loss, frequent mood swings, and general disorientation. But it escalates terrifyingly into slurred speech, deep depression, and a significantly increased risk of developing Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. To underscore just how critical it is to prevent this, we really have to remember the tragic story of NFL Hall of Famer Junior Seau. He committed suicide by shooting himself in the chest, specifically so his brain could be preserved and studied for CTE, all in the hopes of advancing safety protocols for future generations of athletes. Because the stakes are literally life and death here, return-to-play protocols following a head impact are incredibly rigid. Take the NFL's strict 5-stage concussion protocol, for example. An athlete must clear each stage without exhibiting any symptoms whatsoever. Starting with complete rest and recovery, they move to light aerobic exercise, then sport-specific exercise, non-contact drills, and finally full contact practice. An athletic trainer is right there monitoring cognitive tests, balance, and physical symptoms at every single step. An athlete cannot simply tough it out, they absolutely must have medical clearance. Section 1. The training room, the science of rehabilitation and recovery. All right. Let's step off the field for a second and head into the facility where the daily maintenance and complex rehabilitation actually happen. To make this clinical science feel just a little bit more personal, let me ask you, what do you do when your muscles are incredibly sore, and why do you do it? Really think about it. Maybe you take a hot bath, maybe you grab a bag of frozen peas, or maybe you stretch. We all have our home remedies to deal with pain, right? But athletic trainers elevate this simple concept to an exact science to get elite athletes back into peak physical condition. Let's break down the most common dilemma we all face: ice versus heat. Now, ice has been used for centuries to reduce inflammation, swelling, and pain, making it the absolute go-to treatment to apply immediately for acute, sudden injuries. On the flip side, heat is used to loosen tight muscles and increase blood flow to an area, which actually accelerates healing. This makes heat ideal for the warm-up process prior to a game or dealing with older, nagging, chronic injuries. Athletic trainers have to know exactly which biological response they need to trigger to optimize healing. But the tools in the training room go way, way beyond simple hot and cold packs. Take TENS, or transcutaneous electrical nerve stimulation. This is a fascinating, non-invasive therapy where athletic trainers attach these small electrodes to a player's skin, right along the affected nerves. They then send low-voltage electrical currents directly into the tissue. It sounds a bit like science fiction, I know, but it works brilliantly. Why? Because it naturally stimulates the body to produce its own powerful painkillers, called endorphins, and actively blocks pain signals from ever reaching the brain in the first place. Then there's the incredibly important manual therapy side of recovery, like myofascial release. Now, the fascia is basically this intricate web of connective tissue that wraps and supports all your muscles, bones, and organs. When it gets tight from intense physical exertion or injury, it restricts movement and causes pain. Trainers use sustained manual pressure, sometimes with their hands or utilizing tools like foam rollers and lacrosse balls, to physically break up those restrictions and adhesions. This restores critical fluid mobility right back to the athlete's body. Beyond just treating sore muscles and stiff joints, an athletic trainer's foundational skill set has to include emergency medical preparedness. We're talking vital, life-saving interventions like CPR and the use of an AED, an automated external defibrillator. If an athlete suddenly collapses because their heart stops or beats irregularly, athletic trainers are the very first responders equipped to deliver chest compressions, rescue breaths, and utilize audio-directed AED devices to deliver external electric shocks. They are literally trained to restart a heart right there on the field. And because they're dealing directly with physical trauma, blood, and bodily fluids, the safety of the trainers themselves is absolutely paramount. They rely heavily on essential PPE, like gloves, face masks, eye protection, gowns, and shoe covers. These aren't just for maintaining a sterile clinical environment, they are absolutely critical barriers to prevent the dangerous transmission of bloodborne diseases and infectious viruses like hepatitis or COVID-19. Protecting the caregiver is just as important as protecting the athlete. Section 2. The Physiology of Individuality. What blood types teach us about care? This next concept perfectly illustrates our extreme biological uniqueness, right down to the cellular level. Your blood type is determined by specific carbohydrate-based antigens on your red blood cells. If you have A-positive blood and you're infused with B-positive blood, your body doesn't just reject it. It actively attacks the foreign antigens, triggering a potentially fatal immune response called intravascular hemolysis. O-negative can safely donate to everyone because it lacks these antigens entirely, and AB-positive can receive from everyone. The rules are absolute, and they're dictated entirely by your unique genetics. So, you might be wondering, why on earth are we talking about blood types in an explainer about sports medicine? Well, because just like blood transfusions, physical recovery requires perfectly matched, highly customized treatment plans. An athletic trainer isn't running a factory assembly line. A rehabilitation program, a taping technique, or a recovery method that works flawlessly for one player might be entirely ineffective or even harmful for another player. They have to assess each athlete as a completely unique physiological system. To safely and legally handle this level of unique physiological assessment and emergency medical care, the educational bar is incredibly high. These folks aren't just taping ankles, they are highly specialized professionals. They're required to hold master's degrees in kinesiology or athletic training. They've accumulated extensive, grueling clinical hours of hands-on experience. They must pass a rigorous board certification exam and maintain up-to-date specialized emergency medical certifications. It is a demanding, absolutely rigorous career path. Which leads us to our final thought for this explainer. The next time you're watching your favorite sport and a player goes down on the field, will you just sigh and see a game delayed? Or will you now recognize the beginning of a high-stakes, scientifically precise medical intervention? Athletic trainers are the highly educated, unsung heroes, acting as the ultimate shield between the game we love and the long-term health of the human beings who play it. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the big questions.